I will never step foot in your house again. The Korean mafia boss begged after letting his black maid go. Greatest mistake he made. The black maid was dismissed without a word of defense. But what the Korean mafia boss's twin sons screamed in that moment would haunt the most feared man in Busan for the rest of his life. The suitcase hit the stone driveway with a dull thud that seemed to crack the evening silence in half. Amina never imagined that after 3 years of becoming everything to Ji-woo and Min-jae, teacher, protector, the only mother they remembered, she would be cast out like a common thief. Her dark green cardigan was still buttoned crookedly from being rushed out of the nursery, and her fingers trembled as she gripped the worn handle of her handbag. She stood frozen beside her luggage, fighting the tears that blurred the iron gates in front of her, desperately trying not to look back. Behind her, Kang Woo-jin stood in his tailored black suit, hands folded behind his back like a man presiding over an execution. His jaw was set, his eyes cold and unreadable. The jade pendant, his late wife's precious heirloom, had been found in Amina's bag. The evidence was clear. He wouldn't even look at her face. His gaze was fixed on the gates ahead, as if her heartbreak was simply an inconvenience delaying his evening. But it was the sound that shattered everything. 2 small voices, raw with terror and betrayal, screaming from inside the courtyard. No! Amina! Please don't go! Daddy! Stop them! Ji-woo and Min-jae, still barefoot in their pajamas, broke free from the guards and ran across the stone courtyard, their little arms stretched out desperately, fingers grasping at air. Woo-jin grabbed them back without flinching, his face a mask of stone. The gates began to close with a mechanical grinding that drowned out their cries. The twin screams grew more desperate, more broken, and Amina walked away from the only family she'd ever truly known, not knowing that what those little boys had witnessed would destroy their father from the inside out. Subscribe to see how a mafia boss learned the hardest lesson of his life, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story reaches. 12 hours earlier, the afternoon sun cast warm light through the tall windows of the Kong Estate nursery. Amina knelt beside the low table, her apron dusted with flour as she helped Ji-woo and Min-jae roll out dough for the rice cakes they'd begged to make. She'd indulged them, laughing as Min-jae got sticky rice on his cheek and Ji-woo tried to shape his into a dinosaur. She smiled at their concentration, completely unaware of the designer heels that clicked softly across the marble floor behind her. Seo-yun stood in the doorway, her red lips curved into something that wasn't quite warmth. She wore an ivory silk blouse that probably cost more than Amina sent home to Ghana each month, and her perfectly manicured nails tapped rhythmically against her leather clutch as she watched the maid work. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept across the room until they landed on Amina's faded work bag sitting on the window bench, right where the foolish woman left it every single day. Amina! Seo-yun's voice was honey-sweet, the kind of sweetness that made Amina's shoulders tense. Mr. Kong asked me to remind you he'll be inspecting the children's presentation tonight. Everything must be perfect. Amina turned, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead with the back of her flour-dusted hand. Of course, Miss Seo. I'll have them ready. I'm sure you will. Seo-yun's smile widened as she glanced meaningfully at the bag. You're always so thorough. As Seo-yun's heels clicked away down the corridor, Amina returned to the boys, unaware that the woman had left something devastating hidden in the depths of her canvas bag. Something that would destroy her life in less than 12 hours. The jade pendant, a family heirloom worth more than Amina would earn in 10 lifetimes, lay nestled inside a folded apron, waiting to be discovered like a loaded gun. An hour later, while Amina was in the kitchen preparing the children's dinner, Woo-jin's personal vault alarm pierced through the mansion. The pendant was missing. His security team moved through the house like shadows, methodical and thorough. When they reached the nursery and opened Amina's bag, the jade pendant gleamed under the evening light, unmistakable and damning. Seo-yun appeared in the doorway just as the guard held it up. Her gasp was perfectly timed, her hand flying to her mouth in theatrical shock. I didn't want to believe it, but she was always watching, always asking questions about the family treasures. Amina's knees nearly buckled when they brought her into Wu Jin's study. "I didn't take it. I swear on everything. I would never." Wu Jin didn't shout. That was somehow worse. His voice was quiet, final, colder than winter steel. "Pack. You have 10 minutes. The twins cried. Amina begged. Wu Jin turned his back and walked away. And that's where our story truly begins, with a man who thought power meant always being right, and the woman whose absence would teach him the cruelest truth of all, that some mistakes can't be undone with money, influence, or fear. They refused breakfast the next morning. When Wu Jin's chef brought warm rice porridge to their door, Ji Woo kicked the tray across the hallway. When the housekeeper knocked with fruit, Min Jae screamed until his voice cracked. They shoved a chair under the door handle and locked themselves inside, two small boys building a fortress against the father who had betrayed them. "We don't want you," Min Jae yelled when Wu Jin demanded they come out. "You sent Mama Mina away," Ji Woo said, his voice breaking. "So you're not our father anymore." Wu Jin stood outside their door, his jaw tight, hands clenched behind his back. He told himself this was discipline. Children needed structure, boundaries. The maid had crossed a line, and sentiment couldn't cloud judgment. But that night he heard crying through the door. Not loud sobbing, the quiet kind. The kind children make when they've given up on anyone hearing them. Still, he walked away. 3 years earlier, Amina had arrived at Incheon Airport with nothing but a work visa, one suitcase, and a promise from an agency that a stable job waited for her in Busan. She was 26 years old and had left behind her mother, 2 younger sisters, and a small village outside Accra that had no future to offer her. The agency photos showed a large house. Clean work. Good pay. She didn't ask questions. She couldn't afford to. The Kong estate was larger than anything she'd imagined. Cold, too. All marble and iron, glass and stone. Beautiful in the way museums are beautiful, untouchable, lonely. At first, she was hired only to clean. She scrubbed floors while guards watched her with suspicion. She washed windows in silence while the household staff whispered in Korean she didn't yet understand. She learned quickly. Keep your head down. Finish your tasks. Don't ask questions about the man who owned this fortress or why armed men patrolled the gardens at night. Then Mrs. Kong died. Car explosion meant for Wu Jin. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong car. The twins were 4 years old when their mother was torn from them, and suddenly the estate became something darker. The guards multiplied. The silence deepened. And 2 little boys were left with a father who only knew how to command, threaten, and destroy. Amina watched them wander the hallways like ghosts. No one held them. No one sang to them. No one tucked them in. So she did. Started small. Ji Woo refused to eat his rice one morning, and the nanny threw up her hands in frustration. Amina knelt beside him and shaped the rice into a star. He blinked at her, surprised, then ate every bite. Min Jae woke screaming from a nightmare, and when no one came, Amina slipped into the nursery and sat beside his bed, humming a Ghanaian lullaby her mother used to sing. He fell asleep gripping her hand. She learned Ji Woo liked his food arranged in patterns. Stars, circles, never mixed together. She learned he was terrified of the dark but too proud to admit it. So she left the hallway light on and cracked his door just enough. She learned Min Jae cried when thunder came too close, that he needed someone to tell him the storm wouldn't reach him. She learned how to braid their hair the way their mother used to, the way Wu Jin's housekeeper showed her from old photographs. They started calling her Mama Mina when Wu Jin wasn't around, and Wu Jin pretended not to notice. He was a man carved from stone, cold, feared, untouchable. In Busan, his name alone made men flinch. He controlled shipyards, construction, half the city's underground trade. People bowed when he entered rooms. They disappeared when he gave the order. But he didn't know how to hold his sons. He checked on them the way generals inspect troops, brief, distant, clinical. He asked if they'd eaten, if they'd studied, if they'd behaved. He never asked if they were sad, if they missed their mother, if they were afraid of him. Amina saw the grief he carried like a blade lodged in his chest. He kept his late wife's study exactly as she'd left it. He never remarried, never even dated. He buried himself in work, in violence, in control. Anything to avoid the empty space his wife left behind. And his sons paid the price. Then, 6 months ago, Seo-yun arrived. Beautiful, polished, connected to a powerful political family that could legitimize Woo Jin's empire. She smiled at everyone, spoke perfect English, wore designer clothes like armor. She called the twins darling and sweetheart, but never got flour on her blouse or sat on the floor to play. Amina felt it immediately, the shift, the tension. Seo-yun's eyes followed her. Watched how the boys ran to Amina first. Noticed how they tensed when she entered a room. "You're so good with them," Seo-yun said once, her smile tight. "It must be hard, though, getting so attached when you're not permanent." Amina didn't understand the warning then. She only knew that at night, when Jiwoo whispered, "Will you always be here, Mama Mina?" She promised yes. She had no idea how soon that promise would be tested, or how a jade pendant and a woman's jealousy would destroy everything she'd built. Seo-yun wore her beauty like a weapon. She entered rooms with the kind of grace that made people stop mid-sentence. Silk blouses that cost more than monthly salaries. Heels that clicked with authority. Hair always perfect. Makeup flawless. Every movement calculated. She came from the kind of family that appeared in newspapers, her father a retired prosecutor, her uncle a congressman. The kind of woman who could make Kang Woo-jin look legitimate, respectable, clean. She smiled at Amina every morning, but her eyes were always sharp. "Good morning, Amina," she'd say sweetly, standing in the doorway while Amina braided Minjae's hair. "You're so dedicated. The boys are lucky to have someone so devoted." The word always hung in the air like a threat. Amina would nod politely, unsure why the compliment felt like a slap. Seo-yun had a plan. Everyone could see it, even if no one said it aloud. She would marry Woo Jin within the year. She would become the twins' mother, their proper mother, not some hired help from a country no one could locate on a map. She would transform this cold estate into something that looked like a family. She would erase the awkwardness, the grief, the ghosts. And Amina was in the way. Started small. A correction here, a comment there. "Amina, the boys shouldn't be eating with their hands. We're trying to teach them proper manners." "Amina, Mr. Kang prefers the children speak Korean at dinner. Perhaps you could step out during meals." "Amina, I'll handle their bedtime tonight. You've done enough." But the boys cried when Seo-yun tried to tuck them in. They asked for Mama Mina. They turned their faces away when she leaned down to kiss their foreheads. And Seo-yun's smile grew thinner each time. One afternoon, Amina was helping Ji-woo with his homework when Seo-yun entered the nursery carrying a tray of fruit. She set it down with exaggerated care, her gaze sweeping over the scene. Amina on the floor, cross-legged, Ji-woo's head resting against her shoulder as she pointed to words in his workbook. "They're so comfortable with you," Seo-yun said quietly. "They're good boys," Amina replied, smiling. Seo-yun's expression didn't change. "It's just, I worry sometimes. About attachment. Children can get confused about who their real family is." Amina's smile faltered. "I would never." "Of course not." Seo-yun's hand rested briefly on Amina's shoulder, light, cold. "I'm just thinking of what's best for them. Stability, consistency, a real mother figure." She left before Amina could respond. Ji-woo looked up. "I don't like her, Mama Mina." "Shoo, be respectful." But Amina's hands trembled as she turned the page. Woo Jin saw nothing, or perhaps he chose to see nothing. When Seo-yun mentioned that the boys needed proper structure, he nodded. When she suggested Amina's presence during family time was confusing the boundaries, he didn't disagree. He was building something with Seo-yun, a future that looked clean and legitimate. A marriage that made sense on paper. He didn't notice how the boys flinched when Seo-yun entered a room. He didn't hear the edge in her voice when she spoke to Amina. He didn't see the way Seo-yun watched Amina like a predator watches prey. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Seo-yun entered the nursery while Amina was helping the boys with their drawing. The twins were sprawled on the floor with crayons and paper, giggling as Amina tried to sketch a giraffe and failed miserably. Mr. Kong wants the children ready for dinner inspection, Seo Yun said pleasantly. I'll handle their clothes. She moved toward the corner where Amina's work bag sat, the faded canvas tote she carried everywhere, stuffed with wipes, snacks, a first aid kit, the boys' favorite storybook. Seo Yun picked it up casually, as if inspecting its weight. You really should get a new bag, Amina. This one's falling apart. Amina glanced up, distracted. It works fine. If you say so. Seo Yun set it down near the window seat, her fingers lingering on the zipper for just a moment. Then she smiled. I'll come back to check on the boys in an hour. Amina didn't think anything of it. Why would she? But later, when Wu Jin's vault alarm shattered the evening silence, when guards tore through the house searching for his late wife's jade pendant, when they unzipped Amina's bag and found it nestled inside a folded apron, Amina finally understood. Seo Yun had been planning this all along, and no one would believe the word of a maid over the woman Wu Jin intended to marry. The alarm cut through the evening like a scream, sharp, piercing, unrelenting. Amina was buttoning Minjae's shirt when the sound tore through the mansion. The twins froze, eyes wide. Doors slammed. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallways. Guards barked orders in rapid Korean. The entire estate shifted into emergency mode. Tense, military, dangerous. What's happening?
Ivo whispered.
Before Amina could answer, the nursery door burst open. 2 guards entered, their faces hard, hands resting on their belts. One moved toward the closet. The other began opening drawers with mechanical efficiency. What are you looking for? Amina's voice shook. They didn't answer. One guard moved to the window seat and grabbed her canvas bag. He unzipped it roughly, dumping the contents onto the floor. Wipes, snacks, band-aids, the boys' favorite storybook. And then, gleaming against the worn fabric of her folded apron, the jade pendant. Amina's heart stopped. The guard held it up to the light, his expression shifting from suspicion to certainty. He spoke into his radio in clipped Korean. Within seconds, more footsteps, more guards, and then Wu Jin himself, filling the doorway like a storm. His eyes went to the pendant first, then to Amina. She'd never seen him look at her like that before. Like she was nothing. A stranger. A threat. I didn't. Her voice broke. I didn't take it. I swear, I would never. Mr. Kong. Seo Yun appeared behind him, her hand flying to her mouth in perfect shock. Oh no. No, this can't be. She stepped into the room, her expression devastated, her eyes wide with theatrical disbelief. She looked at Amina, then at Wu Jin, then back at the pendant. There has to be an explanation, Seo Yun said softly, her voice trembling just enough. Amina would never. She's been with us for years. Maybe it fell into her bag by accident. From a locked vault? Wu Jin's voice was ice. Seo Yun hesitated, biting her lip as if struggling with something painful. I didn't want to say anything, but she has been asking questions about your late wife, about the family heirlooms. I thought she was just curious, trying to understand the household better. But that's not true. Amina's voice cracked. I'm not accusing you, Seo Yun said gently, her eyes full of false sympathy. I'm just trying to understand how this happened. Wu Jin's jaw tightened. He turned to the guard. Was this the only room searched? No, sir. We checked all staff quarters. This was the only item recovered. The words landed like a verdict. Amina's knees buckled. She gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. Please, you have to believe me. I didn't take it. Someone put it there. Who? Wu Jin's voice was quiet, lethal. Who would frame you, Amina? She opened her mouth, but the words died. She looked at Seo Yun, who met her gaze with perfect, innocent confusion. I don't know, Amina whispered. But it wasn't me. Wu Jin didn't shout. He didn't rage. That would have been easier. Instead, he stood there, silent, his eyes cold and final. The silence stretched until it became unbearable, until Amina realized he'd already decided. Evidence didn't lie. Loyalty meant nothing against proof. Pack, he said. You have 10 minutes. No, please. 10 minutes. The twins had been standing in the corner, frozen, watching everything. Now they broke.
Daddy, no.
Minjae screamed, running toward Amina. She didn't do it.
Ivo grabbed Voine's jacket, pulling desperately.
Don't send her away. Please. Woojin's face remained stone. He nodded to a guard who gently but firmly pulled the boys back. They fought, screaming, tears streaming down their faces.
Mama Mina.
Minjae's voice was raw, breaking. Amina dropped to her knees, reaching for them.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. You have 8 minutes, Woojin said and walked out. Seo-yun lingered in the doorway, watching Amina sob on the nursery floor while the twins screamed. For just a moment, one brief, unguarded second, her mask slipped. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Then she turned and followed Woojin down the hallway, her heels clicking like a countdown. Amina gathered her things with shaking hands, the boys' cries echoing in her ears. She didn't look back as she walked down the stairs. She didn't look back as the gates opened. She didn't look back because if she did, she knew she would fall apart completely. And behind those closing iron gates, 2 little boys stopped screaming. They just stood there, silent and broken, watching the only mother they remembered disappear into the night. The house became a tomb. That first night, the chef prepared the twins' favorite meal: soft rice shaped into stars, grilled fish, steamed vegetables cut into perfect circles the way Ji-woo liked. He arranged everything on their plates with care the way Amina used to. The boys didn't touch it. They sat at the table silent, staring at their plates like the food was poison. When Woojin told them to eat, Ji-woo pushed his plate away. When the housekeeper tried to coax them, Minjae stood up and walked out. Sit down, Woojin ordered. Neither boy looked back. By morning, the situation had escalated. The twins had locked themselves in their room. Not just locked. They'd shoved their desk against the door, piled books on top of it, wedged a chair under the handle. When the housekeeper knocked with breakfast, she heard furniture scraping across the floor as they reinforced their barricade. Boys, please, she called through the door. You need to eat. Silence. Woojin stood outside their room, his jaw tight, hands clenched behind his back. He was a man who commanded empires, who made grown men tremble with a single glance. But he couldn't get 2 small boys to open a door.
Ivo.
Minjae. His voice was firm, controlled. This behavior is unacceptable. Come out. Now.
No.
Minjae's voice was small but absolute. We don't want you, Ji-woo added, his words cutting through the door like a blade. Woojin's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. I am your father. You will obey me. You sent Mama Mina away. Ji-woo's voice cracked. So you're not our father anymore. The words hung in the hallway like smoke. Woojin stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. Seo-yun tried next. She approached their door in the afternoon, her voice soft, soothing.
Ivo?
Minjae, it's me. I brought your favorite snacks. Chocolate cookies and juice boxes. Won't you let me in? The response was immediate and primal. Both boys screamed. Not words, just raw, animal sounds of rejection. Something heavy hit the door from the inside. Then another crash. Then another. Get away! Minjae shrieked. We hate you. Ji-woo's voice was almost unrecognizable. Seo-yun stepped back, her perfect composure cracking. A guard moved forward, but she waved him off, her smile brittle. They're just upset. They'll calm down. But they didn't. That night, Woojin stood outside their door again. The house was quiet. The guards had changed shifts. Seo-yun had retired to her room. But through the door, Woojin heard something that made him freeze. Crying. Not loud sobbing. Not tantrums. Quiet, broken crying. The kind that came from deep inside. The kind children made when they'd given up on anyone hearing them. He heard Minjae's voice, small and muffled.
I miss her.
Me too, Jiwoo whispered back. Then, softly, shakily, they started singing. A lullaby. The Ghanaian one Amina used to hum when thunder came too close, when nightmares woke them, when the world felt too big and scary. They didn't know all the words. Their pronunciation was broken. But they sang it anyway to each other, in the dark. Woojin's hand moved toward the door handle, then stopped. He told himself this was discipline. Children needed structure. Boundaries. They would adjust. They had to adjust. The maid had stolen from him. There was evidence, proof, certainty. Sentiment couldn't cloud judgment. He walked away, but the sound of their broken singing followed him down the hallway. By the second day, the twins had stopped crying. They stopped shouting. They just sat in their room, quiet and hollow, refusing every meal, every drink, every attempt to reach them. The housekeeper reported they were drinking water from the bathroom tap. Nothing else. They'll eat when they're hungry enough, Woojin said. But on the third morning, when the housekeeper finally convinced them to unlock the door, she found Jiwoo collapsed on the floor. His lips were pale. His skin was cold. His eyes were half closed, unfocused. Min-jae was curled up beside him, too weak to cry, just holding his brother's hand. The doctor arrived within minutes. He examined Jiwoo, checked his vitals, administered fluids through and for. Then he turned to Woojin, his expression grave. Dehydration. Stress. His body is shutting down. The doctor's voice was quiet but firm. Children don't starve themselves unless something is very wrong, Mr. Kong. This isn't defiance. This is trauma. Woojin stood there, watching his son's small chest rise and fall. The four dripped steady and accusing. For the first time in years, his hands shook. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and failure. Jiwoo lay in the narrow bed, his small body swallowed by white sheets, and four taped to his thin arm. His breathing was shallow but steady. The doctor had said he'd recover, physically at least, but the way he'd said it carried a warning Woojin couldn't ignore. Min-jae sat in the chair beside his brother's bed, silent. His eyes red-rimmed and empty. He hadn't spoken since they'd arrived. Hadn't cried. Hadn't eaten the crackers the nurse offered. He just sat there, holding Jiwoo's hand, staring at nothing. Woojin stood by the window, his back rigid, hands clasped behind him like he was still in control. But he wasn't. For the first time in years, he felt something he'd trained himself to never feel. Uncertainty. Mr. Kong. The doctor approached quietly, chart in hand. May I speak with you outside? They stepped into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind them. Your son will be fine, the doctor began. We've rehydrated him. His vitals are stabilizing. But Mr. Kong. He paused, choosing his words carefully. This wasn't just dehydration. Children don't shut down like this over discipline or stubbornness. Something broke them. Woojin's jaw tightened. They're upset about a staff change. A staff change. The doctor's eyes narrowed. With respect, children don't starve themselves over a housekeeper. They do this when they lose someone who gave them safety, stability, love. He glanced back at the room. Whatever happened, whoever you removed from their lives, they weren't just staff to those boys. The words landed like fists. I'll keep Jiwoo overnight for observation, the doctor continued. But when you take them home, Mr. Kong, you need to fix what's broken. Because next time, I might not be able to. He walked away, leaving Woojin alone in the sterile hallway. When Woojin returned to the room, Min-jae was pulling something from his backpack. A small toy robot, battered and worn, its paint chipped. He held it carefully like it was fragile, precious. What is that? Woojin asked. Min-jae didn't look at him. Mama Mina gave it to us. Woojin's chest tightened at the name. Min-jae. She said it was for protection. The boy's voice was flat, mechanical. She said if anyone ever scared us, we could press this button and it would record them. So we'd have proof. He held the robot out, his small hand trembling. You should watch it, Min-jae whispered, before you marry her. Woojin took the robot slowly. It was lighter than he expected, cheap plastic and loose joints. But when he turned it over, He saw the tiny camera lens embedded in its chest. His throat went dry. Min-jae, what's on this? The boy finally looked up, and his eyes were full of something Wu Jin had never seen in them before. Hatred. The truth, Min-jae said. Wu Jin pressed the button with shaking fingers. The small screen flickered to life. At first, it was just the nursery. Empty. Sunlight streaming through the windows. Then movement. Seo-yun entering the frame, her heels clicking softly across the floor. She moved with purpose.
No hesitation. No uncertainty.
She walked directly to Amina's canvas bag, sitting on the window seat. She glanced around once, calm, careful, then unzipped it. From her pocket, she pulled out the jade pendant, her late wife's pendant, and slid it carefully inside a folded apron. She zipped the bag closed, smiled at her reflection in the window, and walked out. Wu Jin's hands went numb. The screen flickered again. Another clip. Different day. Seo-yun in the nursery, grabbing Ji-woo's arm roughly, yanking him toward the door. The boy stumbled, and she hissed something in Korean too low for the camera to catch. But her face, cold, irritated, nothing like the sweetness she showed Wu Jin. Another clip. Seo-yun leaning down to Min-jae, her smile sharp. You'll forget her soon enough. Children always do. The robot screen went dark. Wu Jin stood there, frozen, the cheap plastic toy trembling in his grip. The room tilted, his vision blurred at the edges. Every certainty he'd built the last 3 days crumbled into ash. He'd been wrong. Not just wrong, blind. Arrogant. He'd trusted evidence over people. Power over truth. He'd thrown away the woman who loved his sons because a pendant in a bag was easier to believe than the possibility he'd been manipulated. He looked at Min-jae, who was watching him with those empty, hateful eyes. She didn't take it, Wu Jin whispered. We told you, Min-jae said. You didn't believe us. You believed her. The boy's voice cracked. You always believe everyone except us. Ji-woo stirred in the bed, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at his father, then turned his face away. Wu Jin dropped the robot. For the first time in years, Kang Wu Jin, the man who controlled Busan, who made empires bend, fell to his knees. Wu Jin didn't move from his knees. The hospital room was silent except for the steady beep of Ji-woo's heart monitor and Min-jae's quiet breathing. The toy robot lay on the floor between them, its small screen dark now, its purpose served. Everything Wu Jin had built his certainty on, the evidence, the logic, the cold calculus of proof, had been a lie, and he'd been too arrogant to question it. How long have you had this? His voice was barely a whisper. Min-jae stared at him. Since the day you sent her away. Why didn't you show me? We tried. The boy's voice was hollow. You wouldn't listen. You never listen. Ji-woo turned his head slightly, his voice weak but cutting. You only listen to people who look like her. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Wu Jin stood slowly, his legs unsteady. He picked up the robot with trembling hands and replayed the footage, forcing himself to watch every second. Seo-yun's calm efficiency as she planted the pendant. Her cruel grip on Ji-woo's arm. Her condescending smile as she told Min-jae he'd forget. Each clip was a knife. When it ended, Wu Jin slipped the robot into his pocket and walked to the door. Where are you going? Min-jae asked. Wu Jin didn't turn around. To fix this. He found Seo-yun in the estate's sunroom, sipping tea, her legs crossed elegantly. She looked up when he entered, her smile warm and practiced. Wu Jin, how is Ji-woo? I've been so worried. Leave. Her smile faltered.
I'm sorry.
Before sunset. His voice was quiet, colder than winter steel. Pack whatever you brought. My driver will take you to a hotel. After that, you're on your own. Seo-yun set down her teacup carefully, confusion flickering across her face. I don't understand. Did something happen at the hospital? Are the boys? Don't. The single word cut through the air like a blade. Don't pretend. Don't perform. I've seen enough. He pulled the toy robot from his pocket and set it on the table between them. Seo-yun's eyes went to it, and for just a moment, One unguarded second, her mask cracked. Fear flashed across her face, followed immediately by calculation. Wu Jin, whatever the boys told you. They didn't tell me anything. He tapped the robot. You did. She opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands, previously so steady, trembled slightly as she reached for her teacup. It's not what it looks like, she began, her voice shifting to something softer, more desperate. I was trying to help. The boys needed discipline, structure. That woman was confusing them, making them too attached. Her name is Amina, and I thought if she was gone, they could bond with me properly. I was going to be their mother, Wu Jin. Everything I did was for this family. You framed an innocent woman. His voice remained level, but something murderous flickered behind his eyes. You terrorized my sons. You manipulated me. I love you. You love power. He stepped back. You have until sunset. If you're still here after that, my men will remove you. And Seo Yun. He paused at the door. If you ever contact my family again, if you speak my sons' names, if you breathe in our direction, your father's political career will be the least of your concerns. She stood, her composure shattering. You can't. I'm from the Park family. I don't care if you're from the Blue House itself. His eyes were empty. Sunset. 2 guards appeared in the doorway. She looked at them, then at Wu Jin, and finally understood. She was already gone. Wu Jin was in his car before the gates closed behind her. Find Amina, he ordered his head of security. Now. The man was already on his phone, barking orders. Sir, we tracked her movements. She sold her phone 2 days ago. Bought a ticket at the port. She's boarding a cargo ship to... Where?
Kene. Via Singapore.
Ship departs in... He checked his watch. 32 minutes. Wu Jin's jaw clenched. How far is the port? 40 minutes in traffic. Then drive faster. The car lurched forward, tires screaming against asphalt. Wu Jin sat in the back seat, his hands gripping his knees, his mind racing. 32 minutes. Maybe less now. She could already be boarding, already crossing into a place he couldn't follow. He'd thrown her away, refused to hear her, believed a pendant over 3 years of loyalty. And now he had less than half an hour to undo the worst mistake of his life. The city blurred past the window. His driver weaved through traffic with precision. But every red light felt like a countdown. Every second, she was walking further away. The port smelled like salt and diesel and endings. Amina stood at the edge of the dock, her worn suitcase beside her, watching the cargo ship's crew prepare for departure. Men shouted in Korean and English. Cranes groaned overhead. The ship's horn blasted once. A warning. 15 minutes until boarding closed. She'd sold her phone for the ticket. Everything she'd saved in 3 years had gone to fees and bribes and the cheapest passage home she could find. She had nothing left. No contacts. No plan. Just a ticket away from the country that had broken her. She felt nothing. Not sadness. Not anger. Just a hollow numbness where her heart used to be. A worker waved at her. Miss, boarding starts now. She picked up her suitcase.
Mama Mina.
The voice tore through the noise like a scream. She turned. Ji-woo and Min-jae were running toward her, their small legs pumping desperately, still in their pajamas from the hospital. Behind them, guards tried to keep up, and further back, Wu Jin. Amina dropped her suitcase. The boys crashed into her legs with such force she nearly fell. They wrapped their arms around her, sobbing, their faces buried in her cardigan, their small bodies shaking. Don't go, Ji-woo gasped between sobs. Please don't go. We're sorry, Min-jae choked out. We're so sorry, Mama Mina. Shoo, shoo. Her voice cracked. She knelt down, pulling them close, her own tears finally breaking free. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. We tried to tell him, Ji-woo whispered. We tried. I know, baby. I know. She held them, rocking slightly, and looked up to see Wu Jin approaching. He stopped a few feet away, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked uncertain, lost. Then he did something Amina never thought she'd see. Kang Woojin, the man who controlled Busan, who made empires bend, dropped to his knees on the concrete dock. Not bowing, kneeling, his expensive suit crumpling against the dirty ground. "I was wrong," he said. The words hung in the salt air. Amina stared at him, her arms still around the twins, her heart hammering. "I destroyed what mattered," he continued, his voice steady but raw. "I threw away truth for evidence, loyalty for convenience. I cast you out like you were nothing when you were everything. You didn't even ask me." Her voice shook with anger she'd been holding back for days. "You didn't even look at me. 3 years. And you threw me away like dirt. I know. You believed her over me. Over your own sons. I know." His hands were flat on the ground, his head bowed. "There is no excuse. No defense. I failed you. I failed them." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the twins' soft crying and the distant ship horn. "Why are you here?" Amina asked quietly. "To beg." He looked up, and his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were broken. "To apologize. To ask you to come back." "As what?" Her voice was sharp. "Your maid? The woman you can dismiss whenever it's convenient."
No.
He shook his head. "Never again." She stood slowly, the boys still clinging to her hands. "If I come back, if things change, I am not invisible anymore. I speak for your children. You don't throw people away without truth. You don't make me less than human because I clean your floors. I will beg every day if I must," he said. "But I will never doubt you again." "Words are easy, Mr. Kang." She wiped her eyes roughly. "You taught me that. Then let me prove it." He stayed on his knees. "Let me spend the rest of my life proving it." The ship horn blasted again. Final boarding call. Amina looked at the ship, then at the boys, their faces streaked with tears, their eyes desperate and pleading. Then at Woojin, still kneeling, still waiting. She thought about Ghana, about starting over, about safety. But she looked at Jiwoo and Minjae, and she knew. She'd never been safe. She'd been loved. "I will come back," she said slowly. "For them, not for your house. Not for you. I understand. If you ever treat me like I'm disposable again, I walk. And I take them with me." His eyes widened slightly, but he nodded. "Agreed." She pulled the boys closer. "And you listen when they speak. You see them. You be their father." "I will." She stood there for a long moment, war raging inside her. Anger and hope, pain and possibility. Finally, she picked up her suitcase. "Let's go home," she whispered to the twins. They clung to her, crying with relief, as Woojin slowly rose to his feet. The ship departed without her. The gates opened again that night, but Amina did not walk through them the same way she had left. This time, Woojin carried her suitcase. The guards bowed their heads as she passed. The housekeeper rushed forward with relief in her eyes, and the twins, Jiwoo and Minjae, held her hands on either side, refusing to let go even for a moment. The mansion looked the same. Cold marble, iron fixtures, shadows in corners. But everything had changed. The next morning, Woojin knocked on the nursery door before entering. It was a small thing, barely noticeable, but Amina noticed. "The boys need new tutors," he said, standing in the doorway rather than commanding from the center of the room. "I wanted your opinion before I hire anyone." She looked up from where she sat braiding Minjae's hair. "My opinion? You know them better than I do." It wasn't said with bitterness, just truth. "I won't make decisions about their lives without consulting you first." She studied his face, searching for the catch, the performance. There was none. "All right," she said carefully. "Let me meet the candidates." He nodded and left. Jiwoo looked up at her, eyes wide. "He asked you?" "Yes." "He never asks anyone anything." Amina smiled softly. "Maybe he's learning." The changes came slowly, like seasons shifting. Woojin stopped issuing orders about the twins and started asking questions. What do they need? What makes them feel safe? What did I miss? Amina was given a new room, not in the staff quarters, but on the same floor as the boys. A space with windows and sunlight and a door that locked from the inside. Her title changed too. Not officially, there were no announcements, no contracts. But when visitors came, the staff introduced her as the children's guardian, not the maid. Seo-yun's name was never spoken again. Her belongings were removed. Her gifts returned. It was as if she'd never existed, except in the memory of what she'd almost destroyed. The twins began to heal. Started small. Jiwoo ate his rice shaped into stars again, his eyes lighting up when Amina placed the plate before him. Min-jae slept through a thunderstorm without crying, because Amina sat beside his bed, humming the Ghanaian lullaby until his breathing steadied. They started laughing again, playing, running through the courtyard barefoot like children should. One evening, Amina found Woo Jin standing in the nursery doorway, watching his sons build a tower out of blocks. They were arguing good-naturedly about whether it should be a castle or a spaceship, their voices bright and careless. "I forgot what they sounded like," he said quietly. "When they're happy." Amina stood beside him. They needed to know they were safe. They were never unsafe. "Safety isn't just walls and guards, Mr. Kong." She looked at him. "It's knowing the people who love you won't abandon them." He flinched slightly but didn't look away. "I'm learning that." "Good." Weeks passed. Then months. Woo Jin kept his promises. He asked before deciding. He listened when the twins spoke. He showed up to their school performances, their doctor's appointments, their bedtime routines. He apologized often, too often at first, until Amina told him to stop talking and start doing. So he did. One night, after the boys were asleep, he found Amina in the garden. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "For what?" "For coming back. For not giving up on them." She was quiet for a moment. "I didn't come back for you. I know. I came back because they needed me. Because I love them. I know that too." He paused. "But I'm grateful anyway." She turned to face him fully. "You were taught that power means control. That fear keeps people loyal. That emotions are weaknesses. Yes. You were wrong. I know." He met her eyes. "Power taught me fear. I could make anyone obey. But I couldn't make my sons love me. I couldn't make you stay." His voice dropped. "Loss taught me what really matters. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I understand." Amina studied him. This man who'd knelt on a dock, who'd begged, who'd shattered his own certainty to fix what he'd broken. "Good," she said quietly. "Because forgiveness isn't a moment. It's every day." "I know." She walked past him toward the house, then paused. "They asked if you'd read to them tonight." Jiwoo's choice. Woo Jin blinked. "They want me to?" "They're giving you a chance." She smiled faintly. "Don't waste it." That night, Kong Woo Jin, feared Mafia boss, controller of empires, sat between his sons and read them a story about a dragon who learned that kindness was stronger than fire. And when they fell asleep, one on each side of him, their small hands resting on his arms, he finally understood. Power had given him everything, but love had cost him everything to learn. Amina did not return for the mansion. She returned for 2 little boys who called her Mama. And Woo Jin learned that some debts can never be fully repaid, only honored every single day.